Welcome back to the MASSP Podcast as we continue with another episode of Season 9. My name is Ryan Casey, and I had the pleasure of talking with the 2024 Principal of the Year winner, Jon Wilcox of Petoskey Middle School. As the Michigan representative of this award, Jon got to attend the National NASSP Conference, and he talked about that experience and what it was like to connect with other state award winners. We discussed some common things impacting education across the country and not just Michigan, as Jon got to share concerns and celebrations with other attendees, as well as the legislative representatives regarding education. It's always fun to learn about the Principal of the Year winners and the schools they represent, so I hope you enjoy this episode. So enjoy your ride to or from school, your run on the treadmill, or however you like to listen, because another MASSP Podcast episode starts now. All right. Well, Jon, thank you so much for joining us on the MASSP Podcast. I know in my neck of the woods, we're getting ready for Snowmageddon here. How are things looking over at Petoskey?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ryan. It's snowing right out my windows right now, so we've had a pretty snowy winter, which is good.
Yeah, well, hopefully I won't take up too much of your time today in case you got to adjust for some events. Like I'm already getting the text messages from my kids' school about things being canceled. So we will jump right in with our first question. So you were the MASSP 2024 Principal of the Year. And generally every season on this podcast, I try to connect with some of those recipients just so we can pick their brain and talk about their experiences and their kind of output or viewpoint, I should say, on what's going on in Michigan and the principalship and leadership. And so I'd love to hear about your experience being able to represent Michigan at NASSP, kind of the national conference and convention that takes place every year. Can you just talk a little bit about what it was like being out there with other representatives from other states?
Yeah, I guess to sum it up in one word, I would say surreal. It was a pretty awesome experience, and the levity of it kind of hit me. We had to line up in alphabetical order by state, and Michigan's somewhat in the middle, and so I looked to my left and looked to my right, and like, wow, these are pretty impressive people from across the country all in one room, and really kind of the overarching goal of everyone is how do we advocate for public education and how do we advocate for the principalship. Ron Nazoy is the executive director of NASSP, and just hearing him talk kind of motivated me and made me realize, like, through getting this award or this recognition, that there's a platform that comes with it.
Absolutely.
But then with that platform comes responsibility. And that hit me pretty hard while I was in DC about, it is important to advocate for public education, and it is important to advocate for the principalship. So I look forward to that work that comes. But yeah, it was a really cool experience to be around all of those professionals from across the country.
That's awesome. So I know you got to spend time, obviously, with the other, building leaders and principals from other states. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, they usually give you time to connect with some legislative folks and some lawmakers and whatnot. So as you talk about the need for advocacy for public education, what were some of the things that maybe you got to discuss with some of the lawmakers? Did you find out? I mean, I'm assuming things in Michigan are not just unique to us. Maybe there are some things that maybe others aren't worried about, or are there common themes, issues that are happening from across the country based on some of those discussions? Do you mind sharing on that?
No, absolutely. That it really came to light really on day one that the issues that we deal with here in northern Michigan and in Michigan are really similar across the country. It was interesting because different states have different acronyms and, different test models, but they still all do essentially the same thing. During our time there, we had an opportunity to go to the Department of Ed and we talked a lot about AI and how do we oversee the implementation of AI and make sure that it's safe for kids, and that was a huge discussion. So that's obviously a nationwide thing. Also, while we're at the Department of Ed, we talked about the recruitment and retention of teachers, especially special ed teachers. So, nationwide, there's a shortage of special education teachers and a difficulty in keeping teachers, especially special education teachers, in that profession. So again, local issues that really are nationwide. And then we also had an opportunity to go to the Eisenhower building, which technically is part of the White House. It's on the White House grounds. I mean, it's not the White House, but it's on the ground. So we got to go there and spent a lot of time talking about school safety. And it was really powerful to have the opportunity to speak to some lawmakers about that and what is the principal's perspective on school safety and what can we do to improve school safety. So yeah, again, an issue across the country. So
Awesome. Do you feel like they were pretty receptive to listening to, your voice and other voices? I think, do they kind of organize you a little bit by state or region? I mean, I'm sure there was probably the elementary representatives might have been there, right, from Michigan, or not at this one?
This was just secondary.
It was just secondary. Okay.
Yep. So, no, we were all in the rooms together. And then when we were at the Department of Ed, we broke up into little groups, but it was kind of random.
Okay.
Right. But yeah, it still was really powerful about how, these same issues that we're dealing with are across the country. And kind of that feeling of like, okay, we're all in this together. Like, how do we figure this out? Absolutely.
So you mentioned, being able to have a platform, and because of some of the responsibility that comes with the recognition of being the principal of the year. I just would like to know a little bit about Petoskey Middle School and maybe just some unique things or anything that you're particularly proud of, because as much as this is an award for you, it's an award for Petoskey Middle School as well, in a way, probably based on a lot of the work that you've done there. And because as we hold this awards program, we get to hear from superintendents, we get to hear from parents, we get to hear from students and other administrators and teachers. And so I would just love to know, what is something that you would like listeners to know about Petoskey Middle School that you're maybe particularly proud of, or something you'd like to highlight?
Well, I think this is more of a recognition of our school and quite honestly, school district in our community than it is, for one individual. One person can't make a school run. So it definitely speaks to the culture that's in place in our in our building community and in the community of Petoskey at large. So yeah, since last March, I've had the opportunity to talk on a couple of different podcasts and be interviewed. And what I find myself talking about frequently are the different programs that we have in place that really support the whole child, especially at the middle school level. And I think, explaining to people that we are a true middle school as opposed to a junior high. So everything by grade level. It allows us to really provide more wraparound support for kids. We have teaching teams that make we're a fairly large school, decent sized anyway. We have about 200 kids in each grade level. So we have multiple teachers, and we break the teachers up into pods, into teaching groups to try to make it feel like a little bit smaller school. Just finding those opportunities to talk about the different supports that we have in place, and not only the supports that are in place, but the longevity of some of the programs too. What I appreciate is that we don't give up on something. We have something called the full value agreement. Those are our social norms that we expect students to adhere to. And it's really simple. We expect three things. We expect everyone to work as a team, to be safe, and to speak up. And that full value agreement has been in place at Petoskey Middle School since the 1980s. And we've kept it. And when teachers come on board, we talk about it. And it's ingrained into classroom curriculum, and it's just what we do. So I think the longevity of some of those programs really helps too. And then over time, adding more supports um, for kids. So definitely proud of that work that we've done to really support the whole child.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. Um, Shifting gears now a little bit, you've been able to participate in kind of some new programming that MASSP has done this year, called the Innovative Leaders Network, which is really focused on artificial intelligence and really kind of the future of education, right? And making sure that our schools are future ready. So, can you just share with listeners what that experience has been like thus far? Maybe what are some, because obviously there's book studies associated with it. There's been school site visits. There's been webinars, and not that every person's been able to participate in every single session, but can you just talk about some of the different sessions or pieces that you've been able to participate in and what that's been like?
Yeah. So after finding out that I had got the Principal of the Year award, Wendy reached out shortly after that and said, "Hey, I need you to be on this committee." And then, so the first time we met, we found out that a lot of us had been, kind of voluntold that we were going to be on the committee from Wendy, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the drive that she has to improve instruction across the state of Michigan, and education across the state of Michigan, and I guess again, kind of being in that room of a bunch of professionals, a bunch of educators, of like, okay, how do we tackle this really complex issue? It's just a pretty neat opportunity. And one thing that I found out right away, or noticed right away, is that I'm not alone in feeling behind in diving into AI, because I feel like it came like a freight train overnight, and like, whoa, it's here. Now what do we do? But I also have been encouraged by some of those site visits. We took a team down to a school. I can't think of the name
Is
of
it
it.
Jennison or
No.
Northville?
Northville. Thank you. Sorry about that. But yeah, we took a team of teachers and administrators down to Northville, and really just got the feeling of like, hey, try stuff, try it. And just that freedom, I guess, to know that other places are trying stuff, and you might fail, and that's okay. But yeah, that we're all in this unknown world of AI, and really the options are endless in what it could become, and what it really could revolutionize education.
So you mentioned going to Northville, and I know there's been book studies and other things. So how is that participating in those sessions and those learning opportunities? How has that shaped maybe kind of some of the things you're trying to bring back to Petoskey Middle School?
So one thing that I found out right away is that there are so many different bots, and so many different sites that utilize AI. And Northville had a really great resource that we took, and kind of like, I think they had 10 different sites, 10 different programs that they vetted to make sure that they're safe to use in the educational environment. So stealing that, and then really giving teachers some guidelines, some freedom for sure, but then also some guidelines to make sure that, we're participating in a safe environment. That was extremely helpful.
And because some people were able to bring a team, others just came, as by themselves or just administrators. What was the feedback that you got from the teachers that experienced that site visit? Because as a former principal, I know it's one thing when they hear it from a principal or an administrator, but when they hear it from people that are in the trenches doing the work like they are, sometimes it lands better, right? And so there's a little more credibility. So would like to know, what was the takeaway from the teachers from that experience?
So we took a team of 2 other principals and then 2 teachers. So
Okay.
there's 5 of us that went down. And it was quite a drive, to get from to Northville was quite a drive. So most of the time was spent traveling. And what was great about that is that's a lot of time to debrief on the way home. So we spent a whole lot of time and I guess it surfaced more questions than it did answers. But that's good.
Yeah.
And so, what do we do? What's our next step? So we have since been planning district-wide professional development day here next month in March. That's going to be all about AI and the implementation of AI in the classroom. And we're going to break it up between elementary, early L.
Awesome.
4th and 5th grade, and then secondary. So yeah, just lot of thoughts have come out of that. And again, I think, I don't know if I'm overstating this, but I think teachers need to know that it's okay to try things, that it's okay to fail. Obviously we need to make sure kids are safe, but it's okay to try different things, and a lesson plan, or it might fall on its face, and that's okay. We're going to learn from it. So I think that for us, for me, has been huge. Just that little piece of, we're all in this together. Let's figure it out.
Absolutely. I've been hearing a lot of similar type of, conversations from some of our different book studies and our AI water cooler sessions that we've been having. And it seems like that really is the best way. People just need to spend time playing around, messing around without like a high stakes attachment to it, right? And just that's figuring out how to make it work for them in the capacity that they have and their role. And so that's a great message to send to anyone, not just teachers, but principals too, right? Anybody in education with some of these AI tools. So, well, I hopefully you've enjoyed the time being part of the Innovative Leaders Network. I know they still have some more things planned for this year. And then our hope is next year that we can do a new round of experiences for kind of like, you're part of cohort 1, right? So going through, and then we'll open up another cohort and do some of the activities this year and repeat them next year. And hopefully we'll really expand a network and a group of educators that are, at the forefront of kind of this AI movement. So, but I appreciate your time. I appreciate you willing to head out to Washington, D.C. to represent Michigan. And it sounds like you had a great time with that. And so just really appreciate your time being on the podcast, Jon, and I hope you have a great rest of the school year, and hopefully not too much more snow here before we get to the spring season.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. I appreciate the opportunity to kind of share what's going on, and I appreciate it.
And that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you for listening to the MASSP Podcast. Remember, you can listen to this podcast and others anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Just search for MASSP or hit the subscribe button right now.